So live streaming, welcome everyone to our Lead Stronger Longer podcast. This is the podcast that empowers you to purposefully lead your life, personally and professionally. I am so thrilled to introduce our guest speaker, Chris Skaggs, today. He wears many hats. He is the founder and chief operations officer of Soma Games and Soma Soulworks. In 2005, Soma Games set out on a mission to be the C.S. Lewis of video games, creating captivating games that not only entertain, but also provoke thought about profound topics. Meanwhile, Soma Soulworks, the ministry branch of Soma, is dedicated to providing education and thought-provoking content, including podcasts geared towards the creative minds of young adults, especially those in the arts and entertainment industry. Chris is a distinguished Intel Black Belt awardee and a frequent speaker at various conferences, such as the Game Developer Conference, the Christian Game Developers Conference, Casual Connect, Serious Play, and Intel Innovators Forum. I'm going to turn this right over to you. I am really excited to have you here. I was in the audience of the International Screenwriters Association where you were interviewed, and you were so gracious to come on my podcast and share. But I will tell you the takeaway when I left that evening was what you said about video games when, let's say, for example, a grandparent would say, because of the video games and my children having video games, how it's taking them away from books and reading. Yeah. And it's not this. Anyway, so that's what you said. Now, I have thousands and thousands and thousands of books lining my walls in my bedroom everywhere. And until you said what you said that day, I was a video game, anti-video game snob, but I was a book addict. Yeah. And you really flipped that whole paradigm on its head. And now I have been researching about video games. I have been interested in it. I've really sat down and talked to my boys about it because, of course, my teens, they're into video games. And I wanted to understand this, especially when you also said a number that was a jaw-dropping number, $280 billion industry.
Oh, yeah.
So I am very excited to have you here, especially because of what you've done in the video game industry. And I think my viewers and my listeners are going to be very excited about what you have to share today. So let's start right off. What is your favorite quote or go-to mantra, maybe a guiding motto that you have?
Yeah, I think that was Howard Thurman has this quote, and he says, "Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive." Because what the world needs is more people who are fully alive. And this idea about understanding what really drives the heart, what really drives the internal dialogue for people. We love to think that we're rational human beings, and to some degree we are, but to a much deeper degree, we're driven by our joys, by our fears. We're driven by that thing that happens underneath us. And when we learn to tap into that and really chase, and often it's this subconscious notion of like what's happening at the emotional, spiritual level. And that's what's going to help us understand our intellectual level. Like we have to understand we have to, I don't want to say rationalize in a bad way, but we do have to use our reason and use our logic. But ultimately we're driven by our hearts. And to kind of riff on what thinking next is, what games, books, and movies, what they all have in common is story. It's still the stories that we tell, and everything else is just a medium. And a story is the language of the heart. It's what gives us our moral compass. It's what makes us humans and not animals. John Gardner used to say that every story is ultimately moral, that it tells us like what to celebrate. It helps us understand, what does self-sacrifice look like? What does joy look like? What does lamenting look like? We get all of that through stories.
Yeah, so then tell us how those stories led to your specialization in video games, because I never correlated video games and story before.
Exactly. Well, early on, and you, like, to understand, like when video games were new, there weren't stories, right? So the thing about Pong doesn't have a story. But to be fair, neither did that movie of the horse running, right? So like you got to understand that from a technology point of view, it was only 30 years ago or something that games were a new thing. And we were just trying to figure out how to make the screen show a dot, and a dot becomes, a circle, and the circle becomes a sun. And so there hasn't been a technology that's grown. But Roger Ebert used to say that a video game can never be art until it makes me cry. And let me tell you, like, if you've been watching some of the more current video games, they will make you cry like you can't believe. So a friend of mine made a game called That Dragon Cancer, which is about them losing their 4-year-old son to brain cancer. And it's an incredibly deep, personal moving story, all in the shape of a game. If you saw that in a book or you saw it in a movie, you'd be like, that is what art is all about. And games have pivoted, within our lifetime, to where they were a technology, to where they were a craft, but now they're mature enough to be an art form. And that's what drove me, is realizing that, for better or for worse, gaming will be the Hollywood of tomorrow. Everything that everything that Hollywood has done for the last 100 years, as far as like culture shaping and informing values and really distributing across the whole world different points of view, gaming will be all of that and more, simply because of its reach. The notion that I can put a game on 5 billion devices in 5 minutes is unbelievable distribution, and that's where everyone's spending their time.
Yeah, and it's quite frightening, actually. But when I think of it this way, I really enjoyed Ready Player One as the book, and then of course what it talks about and goes through this whole experience. So I get how this led to your specialization. Can you dive in a little bit more, and then taking that picture for yourself and looking at, were there times where there might have been a crucial early mistake as a leader, because you decided to step in early on and lead your own business in this field? So can you take us on a little bit of a journey there and share your story along with any crucial early mistakes and maybe lessons you got from that?
You bet. Well, I think one of the earliest mistakes that we made really came down to not focusing nearly enough on the business model. So for all the art, for all the wow, what a great story. Oh, that's great. But in the end, you got to pay your bills. You got to have something to eat at the end of the day, especially you got kids. And so it's really easy to get caught up in the storytelling and sort of the drama and the romance of being an artist of some kind. That's super fun, but those people are all broke. And the truth is, like, games can be it doesn't have to be rich making. It certainly can be. Some people make incredible amounts of money, but there's an opportunity for independence to, with really modest budgets, still make good products that you can feed your family. And we didn't pay attention to that nearly enough early on. We got really caught up in kind of the romance of it. And then later on, then you pull away from the art because you're just trying to pay the bills. You're not doing games at all. So the seesaw between just paying the bills and then not thinking about the future, that was an early mistake. And so trying to bring these two together so you actually have a business model. One thing that's also important about games is there's very few opportunities to make a game by yourself. You can't be a starving artist making games, because you need a team, right? And it's 5, 10, 100 people making games. More like building a cathedral than it is like writing a book. So there is a business model. You got to make sure that you're paying attention to it. That would be an early mistake that really we should have seen coming.
Yeah, for sure. So this is really interesting. Then can we pull this apart a little bit, because you are the founder and the chief operating officer.
Yeah.
So what does that look like, knowing, because I always think of founder, also CEO, they're also the visionary, they're seeing what's going on. And then you're also the operating officer, which are totally different functions in my brain of functionality and what has to happen. So can you share just a little bit of insight on how you solved that problem of finding the business model? Did you bring someone in? Did you do something internally for yourself? What did you do to solve that problem?
So long story short is I found a very good business partner. And so Randy Brune, best friend, long time, we were back, we did ministry together. So we go back a long way, but his world is very practical. His world is like, he can do spreadsheets and I can, barely scribble on a napkin. So what we've done from a business partner perspective is he brings a lot of strengths that I don't have, and vice versa. So as a group, he can focus on making sure that we're in compliance with the laws, making sure that that's, handling contracts and licenses and that kind of stuff. And that allows me to really focus on getting the product made, being, the creative and leading the team. So I know for some people like CEO, COO, they probably mean more than they really do in function. Like in here, someone's got to have the hat. But there's a lot of notion that we found a business partner who's very different from me, but we have the same vision. Like we have the same goal for what we want to do with the store. We just are good at different things. And that was a huge pivot point for us. That was in 2009. Technically 2008 at the end of it, where we actually made that contract, and it was the best thing we ever did.
Brilliant. Okay, so you had originally started, and then you brought him in after.
Correct.
In seeing your vision. Okay, yeah, I love that. And knowing now, I do know a couple of other things, especially because I saw the interview and you talked about REDWALL. Congratulations! What a huge. So, folks, you are seeing Chris Skaggs, their company. Actually, will you just share this, because this is pretty significant, and a huge kudos. It's so exciting. So just, you can announce it. I know it's not that new anymore. It's a couple of weeks out, but let's hear it.
Yeah, so we worked for many years on several video games based on the REDWALL IP, which is an enormous IP. We're super excited to have this license, and about 22 books written back in the 90s and double aughts, and over 30 million copies sold. Giant IP for us. And we got a publisher that we will be live on Steam, Xbox, and PlayStation by Christmas. So I think December 1 is our launch date. And what we haven't announced yet, but I'll tell you, is we have a second REDWALL game that will launch at the same time. So this is one where we're just kind of making all the pieces together, but I'm actually really excited about this. So a lot of work goes into it. A huge group of our team went into this. It's great.
Yeah, so exciting. It's incredible. And do you think this is going to catapult you into a whole new stratosphere in terms of what your offerings are? What do you think is going to happen?
I sure hope so. One thing that we've never really had a good partnership is on the marketing side. So it's been one of the, it's not for lack of trying, but we've never found a good marketing partner. It's the first time that we got a really good marketing partner. Forthright Entertainment and 4Media Group. They really know this IP. They really know this audience. So we're super excited. For example, like the first time they made the announcement, all of a sudden we had something like 35 million views within 72 hours, which is orders of magnitude more than we've ever seen. So just a giant coup. And this is the same gentleman who was able to bring the Witcher property from an obscure Polish novel to a Netflix series. So like the guy's got great credibility in this space.
Woohoo! I'm so excited for you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I just had a little question that came up on this marketing piece, because that is the other piece of the whole package of a business and being a viable business in terms of how you market. I was curious, how do you do that? So is that another, so I know you have your friend as your partner and he does the logistical things, but the marketing is a whole other component. And then you were talking, you bring outside marketing. So what are you doing in-house, and how is, like, if a leader is starting or wanting to look at the whole picture, can you give some little insight there?
Yeah, I would say that for games, one of the things that has really changed over the years is that more and more, it's not only the product, right? It's not just the thing that you download and play. It's also the community that's built around it. So with REDWALL, for example, we've got 60,000 people on our Facebook page. We got, I don't know how many thousands on our Discord page, but these are folks who love that world. They want to live there. And for REDWALL, every one of them identifies with some woodland creature. Like, I'm an otter, I'm a badger, I'm a mouse, whatever it is. And they love to embody that place. So what we can do pretty well, I think that we've done well internally, is community management. Like, we can bring people together, we can kind of keep them well suited, but that's an entirely different thing than branding, than advertising. That's just a different skill. And frankly, that takes money. And yes, we can buy Google ads, but someone who does this for a living can buy Google ads at half the price, right? So the idea that there's just an economics here that goes into it. We've never had this opportunity for Soma. So I do think this is going to be a big breakthrough for us, just to get the eyeballs out there on what we've been doing.
Yeah, it's reminding me now of public relations versus marketing. And that's, all of a sudden, you've got this explosive public relations arm created, which is where you have the community, and that community just expands. And so really exciting. Okay, some advice then for leaders to lead stronger, longer. You've been in this a while. We're going on, you're not brand new at this. What would you say in terms of the best advice you could give, and maybe you take for yourself, as a leader to lead stronger, longer?
And the quote I like is go slower, do less, and love more. Like, I think it is the entrepreneur culture is to crush it, get out there, do the thing, burn the midnight oil. It's 72 hours a day. It's that culture. It can be so strong and alluring. And some people will convince you that that's the only way to do it. For us, for me personally, that was death. And especially in a creative space, hustle isn't enough. And in fact, hustle just gets you, it reduces your creativity, it reduces your sensitivity. And I found that personally, I had to slow down. And then my decisions, you used this word earlier about being deliberate, being purposeful, to be, it's sort of like the old Abe Lincoln thing. Like if you're going to cut down a tree, you spend the first 6 hours sharpening your axe. Slow down made all the difference in the world, because then there's always, think about, especially in a public space, you have all these opportunities, right? But in a world without focus and purpose, then these become an infinity of options, and you don't know which one's good, you don't know which one's right. But if you can slow down, then you can be deliberate, you can be purposeful, you can stay on brand, you can stay on mission. But it's hard. It's hard in the entrepreneur world to not bow to that pressure to just go faster. So for me, that means like I have to make sure that I actually take a day off every week. Like I have to do it and turn the phone off, shut down, do the thing. And at 5 o'clock, you drop the pencil, and you can't let that thing take away the more powerful stuff. If it's true that story is the language of the heart, story only thrives in peace. And a story told in a rush loses all of its power.
Ooh, that's a mic drop. Everyone needs to, that is absolutely so spot on. And thank you for saying those words. That touched my heart very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Your go-to book. Yeah,
that was tough. When you asked me this, I could boo a lot of things, but probably I'm going to go to Simon Sinek and start with why. This ability for us to really understand why we're doing this. Personally, that was a huge thing. And so I think about, if there's this Hollywood of tomorrow and I want to be a part of it, I want to help shape it when the concrete is still wet. I need to know really why I'm doing it, not just what I'm doing. And so I really believe in that thing of, again, it fits right in. Slow down. Don't just chase the opportunity. Understand your purpose. I think it's a great, great book. He has such great stuff.
Nice. Yes, indeed. Okay. How about you share any contact information for folks to reach out to you, and any specific call to action? I will share that he has, Chris has a game writers workshop weekend retreat coming up.
That's right.
And I am attending. So I'm very excited about that. So please share a little bit more in detail about what that is, how people can reach out to you, and then where we can get the REDWALL games as it's coming out. Yes.
So for REDWALL specifically, it's legendsofredwall.com. And so that's got all the games, and there's multiples. It shows, of course, the announcement for the Scout and the other games that we've made. So that's the sweet spot for the games. For Soma, it's somagames.com, SOMA. And then right on there, you can see our writers retreat. So the immediate kind of call to action is the writers retreat. We've got lots of people who are screenwriters, and that's where I met you at the ISA event, who see that there's just a huge market. There's just a gigantic opportunity for writers to really write good crafted stories. But the process of writing a game is a little bit different than writing a screenplay, or a little bit different than writing a novel. So there's a tactics component to it. So we were asked by the Oregon Film Association. Thank you, Tim Williams down there and Shane Ridley. And so they're sponsoring the event along with George Fox University, the Willamette Writers Group. So come to our website and you can see what we do. And that is November 3rd and 4th. Just a couple of weeks away.
Yes, so exciting. All right, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else you want to say that I didn't touch on?
Well, you're going to have to bring your best computer, because I want to see you actually write a good branching story. So let's do it, Stefan. You're gonna have to do this.
Yes, I'm excited about this. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.